Hello, Michael with Energy Beweging Book Reviews. Today, I'd like to give a summary of the 3 laws of performance. We'll begin with the book's description. Quote, a proven system for rallying all of an organization's employees around a new vision and ideas on making the vision stick. When something isn't going smoothly at work, managers struggle with what part of the problem to tackle first. Do they start with cost reduction, fire disposable employees, or do they go for process improvements first? The authors, Steve Zaffron and Dave Logan, who have helped hundreds of companies and individuals change and improve, suggest spending time and money adjusting the systems in which people operate rather than targeting people and their performance directly. The authors show that it's possible to change everything at once with a focus on making such transformations permanent and repeatable. End quote. So first I would like to say I was impressed with their change everything at once approach. Second, we will completely ignore the book's built-in internalized capitalism that would have you believe that you, the person or an organization, has no value if it can't turn a profit. Yeah, we're going to ignore that. We will focus on how we can apply the 3 laws of performance to clear up issues in our lives, and we're going to point out where the book has similarities with other healing modalities. It was a useful read. It was not written for you, unless you're a business manager, and I will show you how to get good use out of this book for you, the individual. Let's get started. The book is well written, the target audience being the management level business client. The writers, Steve Zaffron and Dave Logan, create new jargon for established terms that, in my opinion, wasn't necessary. Their clients are the decision makers at the top of complex, read in here, rich companies. Who want more profitability in their future, but due to the nature of their default future, are not confident profitability will happen without intervention of some kind. For their examples, they use a family-owned business in Japan. They also use a platinum mine in Africa with 300,000 unique individuals living in 5 squatter camps from 5 different countries with different cultures, different languages, bringing together the workers, the unions, the management, and community, and to get them, by applying the 3 laws of performance, to quit resenting and mistrusting each other, and by applying the 3 laws of performance, get them to all go into a self-created future that they all believed in and committed to. Okay, the big takeaway here is, if applying the 3 laws can fix something as incredibly complicated as the scene in South Africa, or the scene in Africa at the platinum mine, and they did, so they say, I wasn't there, but this is my disclaimer, then applying the 3 laws of performance to your life should be, and is, relatively easy. So let's unpack the book and get into the action steps. Let's start with some definitions. Steve Zaffron and Dave Logan chose to create names for long-established themes. Here are some of the language they used and what it means. Occur. Our actions relate to how the world occurs to us, and not the way it is. Many years ago, Sri Nisargadatta said, "See the world as it is, not as you imagine it to be." So the authors took the word occur and used it to mean perceived, how something or someone seems to be to you, what limiting ideas you have about something, someone, how it or they occur to you. So our actions relate to how the world occurs to us, not the way it actually is, means how you perceive the world drives your attitude, behavior, and actions. The next word, performance. The authors use performance to mean literally how people perform on the job because of their target audience, but also to mean the attitude, amount of participation, and belief concerning a job, company, or a person. We'll get to reality illusion in just a second. Okay. The author's choice of the word performance also demonstrates their target market is managers who notice that capitalism isn't getting them the performance from their disposable worker units, commonly called people, that the stockholders demand. Which brings us to reality illusion. You do not see things as they are, but you see how they occur to you. How they seem to you, how you perceive them to be. Your projections may seem real to you, but they are an illusion and not necessarily shared by anyone else, and they are not reality. They're not facts. Which brings us to the next term, default future. The destination, the result to where any situation is going or will end up without significant change. How to change from a dismal default future where none of the participants want to go is the point of the whole book. And they express that very well. The opposite of a default future is the future worth creating and participating in. On page 70, the authors describe it as our default future consists of our expectations, fears, hopes, and predictions, all of which are ultimately based on our experience in the past. Incidents from the past live on as prediction, giving us our default future. Which brings us to their next term, rackets. This one, it kind of nerved me. So, unnecessary. Rackets are patterns, unconscious patterns that the ego mind creates and runs to have a quick response to stress situations. The authors describe rackets on page 77. We must become aware of all four parts of a racket: the complaint, pattern of behavior, the payoff, and the cost. The authors follow up with two good points. While I think they could have just said patterns instead of rackets, hey, Steve and Dave, those NLP classes really paid off, eh? They did bring in two good points: benefits and costs. Benefits are the short-term benefits that the ego mind gets from complaining in your internal dialogue. The costs are what you're losing, missing out on, or having to literally pay for giving the ego mind the short-term pleasure of, I'm right, you're wrong. It's like win the argument, ruin the relationship, launch the invasion, lose the war. One last thing. The author's clients for whom this book was written are businesses, and contracts for turning a company around are huge, as they should be. So that is big ticket consulting, top level coaching. Go for it. Now, that is part of our understanding. What are Dave and Steve sharing? What is useful to us? And how can we apply it? They begin in a platinum mine in Africa. I worked in a gold mine in West Africa, Sierra Leone, so I know a little bit of the complexities that they're referring to. Remember, 300,000 unique individuals living in 5 squatter camps from 5 different countries, different cultures, different languages, bringing together as workers, unions, management, and community. Complex. The first takeaway from this book is you can apply this book and the 3 laws of performance to your life, because whatever you got going on is not more complicated than 300,000 unique individuals working together und so weiter. Yeah. And getting them to move in one direction, improve performance, and create a shared future worth living, participating in, and committing to. What you got going on is not more complicated than that. So, this can work for you. Try it. I did. How people perform. Okay, this gets into the first law on page 6. How people perform correlates to how situations occur to them. Whatever the situation, your job, your relationships, how you perceive it, what patterns of yours are you projecting onto it? What unresolved issues are you trying to make the situation or person fit into? In the book, the authors start off using the example of an elderly black woman listening to a white female senior manager at a mine meeting. The 3 laws had already been begun to be implemented. And as a youth, the black woman was abused verbally, emotionally, and mentally by a apartheid-era white woman, and then she, the black woman, hated and mistrusted all white women. Because the mine management wanted to change their default future, closed in 5 to 10 years, and brought in the 3 laws of performance, just by being exposed to the process of the 3 laws, the black woman was able to have an epiphany that she did not have to try to fit all white women into her pattern of the evil oppressor and keep marching towards the sad default future of hatred. And rather, due to the epiphany, she was able to work together with everyone else to build a future worth living in and committing to. The authors expand this example to the whole mining community, miners, the management, the unions, and they are very clear in pointing out real honesty wasn't a necessary part of breaking the default future. Once the assumptions, prejudices, patterns, and rackets were exposed and in the open, all the stakeholders, the unions, management, the workers, they all agreed that holding on to those prejudices and illusions could only lead them to the default future: labor unrest, strikes, unprofitable mine production, deaths by accidents that could be avoided, and eventual shutdown of the mine. No jobs for anybody. Capitalism fails. And nobody wanted that. That they could all agree on. Then all the stakeholders expressed their highest hopes and aspirations for the future, and were able to agree that safe working conditions, better health care in the community that had a serious AIDS problem, better production at the mine, management and labor that could be honest with each other, respect each other, and talk to each other like people instead of opponents. These were all things that everybody could agree they wanted. The authors also stated that the projected expectations have a 70% failure rate. That means without clearing out the reality illusions, the rackets, the patterns, the preconceived notions, the prejudices. Without clearing all of that out first, projecting your expectations on a situation without changing the way you're perceiving it would fail 70% of the time. Wishful thinking, cute slogans on the wall, and affirmations could not make a better future. Once the reality illusions, rackets, patterns, prejudices were exposed, they were weakened. The new commitment to the agreed upon future worth creating was required from every stakeholder, every worker, everyone in the community, the unions, the management. They had to agree and commit to that to avoid the default future. And once your expectations of the future shifted, what you expect from the other stakeholders shifted, your performance will change. How you behave, what action towards the new committed to goals, what you will do will change. You will change. And this is a real good takeaway. Change what you're expecting. Change your unspoken internal dialogue. Do your inner work, and you can change a default goal for a goal worth committing to and being a part of. You open up to intuitive guidance. You plan, execute, and keep track of action steps towards your committed goal. Restated, your new performance becomes aligned with your new way of the new way that the situation occurs to you. Your new, deeply rooted expectations of the situation and the other players, your new, better future worth creating is now your default future. That's where you want to go. Leading into Law 2 on page 36, some quotes. The approach to transformation is everything. It takes individuals to put themselves in the space of committing. This means how it's packaged and presented has a lot to do with its success. When we change how we perceive a situation, then we shift how the situation occurs to us, new actions will follow. The authors state, language is the means through which your future is already written. Okay. For Law 2, the authors refer to the unsaid but uncommunicated. Unsaid but communicated. The list includes assumptions, expectations, disappointments, resentments, regrets, interactions, or unresolved issues and subconscious patterns. Now, I may usually think of language as the spoken language, but the authors have grouped unspoken language and body language into language. The rolling of the eyes when somebody says something, the arms crossing, like I'm not open to hearing about this, that kind of expression, unspoken expression, is also included in their definition of language, body language. The authors also suggest, and I thought this was very good, examining your thoughts and opinions. For example, I read a book that said the failure rate for recreating your future is 70%, so why even try? Look at what you believe about your future. Holding on to limiting beliefs leaves us no room to create anything new. Unsaid, limiting beliefs are like working at a messy, cluttered desk full of sticky notes, folders, papers. There's no space to work. Too much time, mental time thinking, physical time doing unfinished things from the past. Leave no time, space, or energy for now and the future you want to create. From the bottom of page 42, move issues into the light of discussion. look deeply at your unresolved issues and ask yourself and answer, why? Why do you believe that? Why do you believe what you believe? Is what you believe and are not saying, is that holding you back? Not the person or the situation in your default future. Look at your inner dialogue. And this, I thought, was really good. Your inner dialogue is driven by your unresolved issues and beliefs. And, did you ever notice? Your inner voice or your ego mind won't give you new solutions to your performance challenges. It's just focused on a default future that nobody wants because it's the ego mind and not giving you good advice. So, here it is, page 42. The authors get into rackets like it's some revelation. It's just a new unnecessary term for long-established terms such as unconscious patterns. I did appreciate their suggestions to look at the benefits to the ego and the cost to your future. For a limiting unspoken belief such as, I'm right, you're wrong, you'll never change, it's hopeless, that gives the ego mind a benefit, a brief feeling of superiority, and there's no effort required. Why bother trying? It's already hopeless. I know it's hopeless. My ego told me so. The cost with an unspoken attitude like that, the default future will be damaged relationships and the failure to succeed. That's a big cost. When you look at the short-term benefits to your ego mind, the cost is never worth it. Or the cost is also you're living at a lower frequency. Last week we did a book review on Dr. David R. Hawkins' Power versus Force, and he measured a positive attractor field of 600 and stated that living in that field requires or includes love, acceptance, compassion for others. The energy of I'm right, you're wrong, you'll never change, it's hopeless is 200 or less. You'll never build a future worth living in based on that energy level. That is the cost to you, living in a low energy field. When all the assumptions, projections, how it occurs to me are expressed, examined, and found not to be the situation or the person, and they're not. It's an illusion reality, a reality illusion. Once they're exposed, you can commit to a new strategy of creating or change your inner dialogue for one that will take you where you want to go. You let go of the ego's short-term gain. And the cost also goes. On page 58, the authors state, most rackets begin with a complaint over which the person feels no power. You might check to see if this was the case for you. If so, disclosing the racket will bring you back to that complaint and allow you to deal with it in a way that gives you a sense of power. That's a quote from the book. And the authors suggested writing a letter, not sending it, to the person or situation that your ego mind is complaining about in your internal dialogue. And use the letter to tell them or it how the costs of that short-term gain are affecting you. Include forgiveness. Cue the Ho'oponopono and the energetic relationship healing. The authors use Ho'oponopono repackage it so that it's more acceptable to their manager, client, target audience. Okay. Express your feelings in this letter, and you can expose what hasn't been said before. And you will see that it is possible to change how you view the situation, change how it occurs to you. In the example of the Japanese company, how the situation occurred changed from, if only the old leader were here, to, hey, we can go beyond what our founder intended. We can go to a bigger, brighter, better future together. Bringing the unspoken assumptions into expression through a letter or talking about it with the other stakeholders created space to create something different and better from the default future. And it empowered the stakeholders to write and commit. This is a big word. I've used it several times already. Commit to a new future worth living. You have to commit. Which takes us to page 63. There are specific actions leaders can take to tap into the power of the second law of performance. This is a quote from the book. Become aware of your persistent complaints about the people and situations around you. Notice that these cycle through your internal voice. Notice that these complaints are interpretations of the facts, not the facts themselves. See all four elements of your rackets: persistent complaining, a set way of behaving, the payoff, and the cost. See your rackets at work. We all have them. Probe into the situation by writing down everything you need to say to others, including anything you need to forgive or be forgiven for, anything you need to take responsibility for, or anything you need to give up, like the complaint and the rackets. Communicate what you discover to others in your work and life. Many people find that this action alone has a dramatic impact on their performance, and surprise, surprise, being honest with the people around you that you've been busy projecting on, asking their forgiveness for your projections, also has an impact on their performance. What a surprise. Being honest with yourself and others makes you a better tool of capitalism. That's not what they said. That's kind of something I threw in. Good suggestions to clear out the old and create space for something new. Give it a try. I did. On page 68, the authors state the third law. Future-based language transforms how situations occur to people. Future-based language, also called generative language, has the power to create new futures, to craft vision and eliminate the blinders that were preventing people from seeing the possibilities. It doesn't describe how a situation occurs to people. It actually transforms how it occurs. It helps the language used helps transform how a situation seems to people and enables and empowers them to build a future worth participating in and committing to. Okay. Now, they go on to describe to their manager audience why Ho'oponopono and energetic relationship healing work using business and academic terms. Thank you very much. Generative language transforms how situations occur. It does this by rewriting the future. Ask what your default future is, especially related to your performance challenge. The third dimension to creating a blank space is the most powerful. Completing issues from the past. Some places you can look within yourself where resentments, regrets, angers, integrity issues Have you been a naughty capitalist? Or broken agreements? Lack of acknowledgement for the other person's contribution, or participating in gossip which diminishes the person who's the target of the gossip. The authors suggest, first, start a conversation with the person with whom you need to complete an issue. Create a frame in which the completing the issue is a benefit to both sides. Win-win. This is an old style ho'oponopono where two people sit down and talk about their perceived problems. Very effective, not always practical. And the second suggestion, address what happened, what you decided, what you did or didn't do. Talk about what's between the two of you that's unresolved. Because you've held on to the resentment, the grudge, the hard feelings, you have to take responsibility for the damaged relationship. It may even be to such an extent that you ask to be forgiven. This is very much ho'oponopono, or energetic relationship healing. Notice the use of the language that is much more potent than just describing the situation. I acknowledge and take responsibility for it. My projections, my feelings, my inner dialogue. I take responsibility for me. The very act of saying this, acknowledging your responsibility for things not being right, is often enough to switch the energy in the situation completely. The third thing they suggest is to take whatever action is necessary, such as apologizing or giving up your rackets, internal egoic dialogue, perceived notions, your prejudices. And when we give up complaining and short-term benefits, when we can forgive and are forgiven, new spaces open up for new things to be created. Bringing completion to old grievances and mistakes. Ask for forgiveness and grant forgiveness. Pull your energy back, and this will clean the table, so to speak, and make room for a new future, and provide the energy to move into the future instead of holding on to old grievances. A declared future it's not a dream, a hope, or an affirmation, but a future to which you commit yourself. I'm going here. This is my future. This is what I decide on. This is what I deserve. This is what I want. I'm committed to me. So, we're not going to cover the rest of the book that deals with how managers need to apply these principles. Rather, let's look at how can we use this book. First, choose an area in your life where you desire change. With what default future do you want to avoid? With a nod to the book, let's improve a work relationship. Closely examine what you think about a situation with a colleague. What internal dialogue keeps coming up concerning your colleague at work? Oh, there he is with the boss again. I bet he's kissing up. Or, he only gets ahead by flattery. Look at how you think about the situation or person. Examine the default future that holding on to your attitudes and egoic internal dialogue will lead to. Okay, they quit or leave. Schadenfreude. Very egoic, short-lived benefit. You feel like you have to quit or leave. Loser. Or you suffer with the endless egoic whining that leaves you feeling bad and helpless. And what's your benefit? The ego mind feels superior for a second. What's the cost? You begin to hate work, your attitude and performance drop, making it easy for your colleague to pass you by in the next round of raise and promotions, and you have made a self-fulfilling prophecy. You can clearly see that default future sucks. You're not operating at a loving, compassionate level of energy. You're 200 or below. You're living in a very low energy. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your physical health or your mental health. That default future is not where you want to go. Now, old style Ho'oponopono would be sitting down with the other person and talking about your feelings, being honest, and finding out more about the other person directly from the other person and not from your ego mind's negative projections. Or, recommended by the authors, you can simply write a long letter, address it to them. Don't send it. And put down all your complaints. Now, here is where 70% will fail. Because your complaints, your internal dialogue, are your unresolved issues. If you can fix your relationship with this colleague, and if you don't resolve your patterns, unresolved issues, rackets, ego-driven internal dialogue, if you don't fix that, if you don't resolve that, then your ego will find someone else in your life to begin projecting onto. And the cycle will repeat itself somewhere else in your life. Do your inner work so that you can be in the 30% that resolve their internal issues and move into futures that are worth living in, participating in, and committing to. Find and resolve your unresolved issues. Back to the letter. Have a paragraph at the end where you talk about where you want to go. What is your future worth creating, living in, and committing to? You get to decide. Now, then do the energetic Ho'oponopono, or energetic relationship healing, with the person and ask them to forgive you for projecting your egoic garbage onto them. And in your mind, hear them ask you for your forgiveness and grant your forgiveness. Repeat this process as often and as many times as it takes to break you out of your default future and keep you on your path to your future worth creating, participating in, and committing to. There is that word again, committing to. You have to be committed to you. Now, as we're not dealing with anyone other than ourselves, we keep doing the Ho'oponopono, the energetic relationship healing, watching our internal dialogue, and you will find yourself quickly on the path to your new default future, smiling more and a nicer person to be around. Your internal state alone, raising your energy alone, that benefit to you is worth all the short-lived egoic benefits. Just let those go. In summary, The 3 Laws of Performance was a good read. It had some gems in it that we can apply to our own lives to improve them. I'm grateful to the writers, and I wish them much success with their corporate clients. If you've read the book, let me know what you think in the comments below. This is Michael, and I look forward to seeing you in our next Energiebewegungen book review.